a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSA, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station, via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSA, the hub of governance professionals.
Many thanks for joining us on Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. I am your handcomer, Tunde Odeyemi, and today we are going to be looking at the role of external auditors on the integrity of corporate financial reporting. And I have with me here in the studio, Mr. Godwin Abimbola Samuel. Yes. Mr. Godwin Samuel is an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. He is also a legal practitioner with 31 years post-call experience. He practiced as company secretary of foremost listed companies such as UAC of Nigerian PLC, UACN Property Development Company PLC for over 2 decades. He was also a group legal advisor of UACN Nigerian PLC during the period. Prior to joining UACN, he worked variously as senior counsel with Deji Shashaigo and Co. legal practitioners as a law lecturer at the Lagos State University, Ojo. He was overall best graduating student of the Lagos State University, Ojo in 1990. Holds a master's degree in law from University of Lagos. Mr. Samuel, executive director of Livestock Feed from 2013 to early 2021, and is currently the lead counsel at Godwin Samuel Chambers Legal Practitioners. He holds several other professional membership. Mr. Samuel, you are welcome to Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Now we are discussing the role of external auditors on the integrity of corporate financial reporting. I would like to start this conversation by asking what are the roles and functions of external auditors. Let's start with that.
Well, the external auditor, the roles of and functions of the external auditors are provided very clearly in the Companies and Allied Matters Act. Now 2020, the external auditor plays a very significant role in the overall financial reporting process of companies, especially in the listed companies. And as a matter of fact, all companies except now that CAMA has excluded the small company and the companies that are not yet doing business or they've not commenced business operation. To put it very pointedly and very precisely, one would say that the basic role of the external auditor is to examine the records or the books of a company as part of the financial reporting process, and these books include the balance sheet, the income statement, otherwise called the profit and loss account, the statement of changes in equity, and cash flow and other information, and to be able to provide an opinion on the financials of the company in terms of whether they have complied with all the applicable standards, reporting standards and regulations, and whether the books of the company really give a true and fair view of the financial conditions and the operations of business within a particular year.
Well, that's comprehensive enough. What then is the link between external audit functions and risk management?
Well, again, I think for us to answer that question, we must understand what risk management is all about. Risk management is all about, is a process of identifying, if you like, not just identifying, but also of assessing, of managing and of mitigating the risk of a business. And overall, there's always that risk management framework that must be in place with necessary policies and profilings that are meant to be in place in the overall context of either the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 and other applicable regulations and statutes.
Okay. How does the external auditors ensure the integrity of the financial statements?
Well, again, it goes back to the role of the external auditor, and it's important that the integrity of the financial statement. Of course, there is a big role for the board of directors of the company. They are to ensure, of course, the board is a preparer of the financial statements, okay. And they are also to ensure the integrity. So it's not something that is resident with management. It actually goes to the board level, and that's why you find that in external auditors' opinion is always stated that the board is the preparer of the financial statement. So their role in ensuring the integrity of the financial statement is actually to give an opinion as per whether the financial statement give a true and fair view of the financial conditions and then the operations of the business. So they put in everything, things like their independence, their objectivity, and also the integrity of even the external audit firm or those who are involved in the external audit process. They all go into ensuring the integrity. And of course, the whole process of the audit program it starts, as a matter of fact, their contribution to ensuring the integrity of the financial statement goes back to the process of their appointment. It goes back to the regulations and statutes in place to ensure that they do a very good job. And then the process of reporting, where the audit committee and the committee of the board in charge of audit, they all have very important roles to play.
Wonderful. Why responding, you mentioned true and fair view.
Yes.
Is an element in the financial statement.
Yes.
What's the meaning of this, and what's the relevance to corporate governance?
Well, true and fair view, which is the external auditor is meant to express an opinion on the financial statement, and the bottom line is to indicate whether it gives a true and fair view of the financial conditions and the operations of the business in a particular year. And that true is to be able to say that company that is being audited or the audit client has the bottom line is to be able to say that the users of the account can rely on that financial statement, okay. and it has to do with there are no material misstatements. The company has complied with the applicable standards and regulations. And fair has to do with objectivity. It has to do with presenting an unbiased opinion, okay. As far as the financial statement is concerned.
Okay, I'd like to take you a little bit into the Code of Corporate Governance. The code, provides that the recommendation for the appointment, reappointment, or removal of an external auditor should be made by the committee responsible for audit to the board.
Yes.
Now, why is this provision important in the governance context?
Yes, so you find that from the earlier questions that I had answered, that provision is very important. because we talk about the role of the external auditor in ensuring the integrity of financial report. And it all starts with the way they are appointed. It all starts with the quality of the external auditor that is appointed. And that is why the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 has said that both the audit committee and then the board committee in charge of audit, they have a role to play. They have to screen, of course, if an audit firm is being appointed, RFP will have been sent out. A number of audit firms will have responded, and then the process of appointment entails that these two committees, the audit committee of the company and then the board committee, must have been involved in the process of interviewing the external audit firms that have applied for the job, and then being able to recommend to the board. The board makes the appointment out of all the firms that have applied, the one that should be appointed. Of course, they start with from your question, the appointment, and also you talk in terms of reappointment, you talk about removal, and even their remuneration. Okay. The board, those committees are very important because both the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 has given very significant roles to the board committee in charge of audit, and of course the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 also confers very significant role on the audit committee, which has also been reinforced by the Audit Regulation 2020, just released by the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria recently, that took effect from January 25, 2021.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah. I also like to take you to another provision of the code that says that I want to know the rationale behind the code's recommendation that external audit firms may not be retained for more than 10 years continuously, and that external audit firms disengaged after 10 years of continuous service may not be considered for reappointment until 7 years after their disengagement. Precisely. What's the rationale for this?
Well, again, it has to do with rotation. A key ethical requirement for a successful audit, external audit, is the independence of the external auditor. So, and yes, it is required that the external auditor should be conversant, to have a good acquaintance or knowledge or understanding of the business or the industry of the audit client, and then the impact of the business environment on their operation. But it is also required that they don't get too conversant, too close to the company. They don't become almost like part and parcel of the company, to the extent that that key requirement of independence is impaired. And so that is why the code, the drafters of the code, in their wisdom, they have said that an audit firm should not audit a company for more than 10 years. Yes. And then, of course, where the audit firm ceases to be the external auditor, there should be a cooling off period of 7 years before it can be reappointed. The code did not stop there. And the code then goes to the engagement partner, that the engagement partner, there's a provision for rotation every 5 years. And then it also goes further to provide or to state that after a member or members of the audit team have ceased auditing a company, for instance, the engagement partner cannot be appointed. There should be a cooling off period. It cannot be appointed to the board of that audit client until after 3 years. And the same provision applies to other members of the audit team, that they cannot join the financial reporting unit of the audit client until after a while. And this is all, starting, if you go back to your first question, they are all aimed at ensuring the impartiality, the objectivity, the integrity, and then the independence of the external auditor, which are major ethical requirements for external audits.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel. Let's go for a moment off break. When we come back with this, we continue with the discussion with Mr. Samuel on the role of external auditors. Please don't go away.
Corporate Governance Platform, a program from the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSA, is now at your doorstep.
By the way, what is corporate governance and what are its key pillars?
Will there be any conflict of interest if a person combines the roles of a chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
What can Nigeria do to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform crew every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your tally station via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSIM, the hub of governance professionals.
You are welcome back. It's the Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. And I see her with me here in the studio, Mr. GODWIN Samuel, ACIS, leading the conversation on the role of external auditors. Mr. Samuel, you have spoken extensively on the integrity, objectivity of the external auditors. I would like to ask you this question. Can internal audit functions be outsourced to the same external auditors, and what are the challenges that this approach can create for the business?
Well, whether it can be outsourced to the external auditor, well, the starting point of answering that question is to say that the code, the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, has provided or made allowance for the outsourcing of internal audits, but it's just that there must be explanation in the annual report as to why that has to happen. But precisely regarding your question as to whether the external auditor can also be the internal auditor, well, the roles are quite different. But so if you ask me in terms of is there a provision in the code or in CAMA that stops the external auditor from being also the internal auditor, I would say there isn't any clear or any direct provision on that, but I think it is part of, they are to ensure the integrity. I mean, they are contributing to the integrity of the financial reporting. So they should not really play that dual role, because part of what they will be checking on is the internal controls in place and the rest of them. So I think it is not a role they should take on. I also think that it will probably come within the context of non-audit, where this is internal audit, but I think it will have to apply or extend to it certain provisions in the code and also the audit regulations 2020 relating to other jobs that the external auditor can do. And you have provision around that. The company should have a policy around that. But to further ensure their independence, I would say it's not a role they should take on. And I think the broader recommendation or leaning now is for you to really have the internal audit function domesticated within the organization. I'm aware a few companies have outsourced their internal audit, but I think there is
Are there implications if a company decides to, outsource the internal audit functions to the external audit firm? Are there implications?
Well, and that's what I've said, that there are provisions in the audit regulations that have been released regarding, there's this 20% rule in terms of quantifying the fee that you can earn for other jobs you are doing for the audit client.
Okay.
It will have to do with the impairment of their independence and objectivity, and also it will then cast some doubts on the integrity of the financial of their work. So I think it is better, especially as it relates to the audit, internal audit, because from my experience, the work of the internal auditor is an input for the external auditor.
Okay.
So you find that if they are combining the two roles or functions, now it will be that they are making use of their own work. All right, they are making use of their own work. Yes, people will talk about creating Chinese wall and all the rest of them. But if you ask me, my recommendation is that you should really have a different entity. Either it's done internally or is outsourced to some other organization, so that it can really be a good raw material.
Let me take you to another aspect of the provisions in the Code of Corporate Governance.
Yes.
The code requires that the audit team should demonstrate a good knowledge of the company's business.
Yes.
Now, what's the reason for this, and how can they acquire this knowledge?
Well, you know, the reason for it is basically that if you are going to audit an entity, for you to be able to provide this true and fair view of the records or the books and the operations of the company, you must also have a good knowledge of that business. You must have a good knowledge of the industry in which that business is playing. You must also have a good knowledge of the impact of the economic environment on that business. Because if you don't, then it becomes difficult to audit that entity. It becomes difficult to the extent that the issues are being concealed, some issues are being hidden. You'll not be able to drill down to the various ramifications or gamuts of the business. You not know the right place or the places to check in order to ascertain the integrity of the books that you are auditing, or the operations that you are auditing. So that is why a very good knowledge of that industry and business is also, and it's a kind of partnership. The external auditor should also be in a position, from experience too, to be able to make recommendations in terms of how the business of the audit client can be enhanced.
Okay.
Yes, so if they don't understand the business, either from a micro perspective or the impact of the global economy on that business, they will not be able to partner with the business in terms of providing recommendations. It's not just to audit, it's not just to have audit findings. You must also be able to come up with recommendations in terms of how to improve the performance of that business.
Okay, that is taking Mr. Samuel. Now, where the audit committee disagrees with the audit opinion with cogent reason, what should be done so that the shareholders at the AGM, annual general meeting, can take appropriate decision?
Well, that is a bit of a tough question. From a practical point, I think it's not something that happens on a daily basis, and I'll give you reasons for my opinion. Number one, the internal audit, the audit committee is actually involved in the process of appointing, just like the question you asked earlier, the process of the appointment of the external auditor, appointment, remuneration, reappointment, and all of that. They are involved. Yes. And the starting point of the audit process is that the external auditor presents the audit program to the audit committee. So the audit committee has the opportunity to make input into the audit program from the beginning. They were involved in the appointment. And then now, at the commencement of the audit work, the external auditor comes before them to make presentation that this is the audit program we are going to use to audit the enterprise. And of course, at the point when their job is concluded, when they have come up with what we call the management letter, they then also present it to the audit committee along with their findings and then the responses of management. So at that point, the audit committee more or less is holding the balance in terms of reviewing the responses of management to the findings of the external auditor, and then to then give necessary directives or make necessary recommendations. So you may not get to the point where yes, the audit committee is to make recommendation or to deliver an opinion to the members of the company at general meeting, but they also have the opportunity to make recommendation to the board. So it's an issue that will have been dealt with at that level, at the board level. So scarcely will it get to the company. But that is not to say that is a possibility. Okay. But if it happens, there are provisions. For instance, within the Financial Reporting Council Act and the regulation just released that are to resolve such issues.
Okay, I would like to give a yes or no answer to this question. Will ICSAN, as a champion of corporate governance, say that the provisions of the code in relation to external auditor is by and large best practice?
Precisely, the provision, provision of the code, Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, best practice. There has been an evolutionary process to get us to where we are now, and you've had a lot of corporate scandals, and here and there, the Aaron, the Parmalat.
So ICSAN is the best practice.
It is.
Now, I'd like to know what ICSAN is doing. How does ICSAN enhances the capacity of our members who are company secretaries on how to relate professionally with external auditors?
Well, I would say that the training provided by ICSAN is best in class. It's perhaps not comparable to what you have in other professional bodies. The training provided by ICSAN, the Charter Secretary is a thoroughbred professional, is a rounded professional. In terms of the contents of the curriculum, you find that is at once is trained in business, is been trained in finance, is been trained in accounting, is been trained in corporate secretaryship, is been trained in law. And so when you bring the whole of this training coupled with continuing education and retraining, webinar and seminars being organized from time to time. So the Charter Secretary is really in a good stage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Godwin Samuel. We've been discussing the role of external auditors, and Mr. Godwin Samuel has done justice to that. At this point, we'll wrap up with the program. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Samuel, thank you for joining us on the program.
It's my pleasure.
I remain Tunde Odeyemi. Bye for now.
Will there be any conflict of interest if our person combines the roles of our chairman and a chief executive officer in a corporate organization?
Will Nigeria due to gain international recognition in the context of the application of corporate governance?
These and many more questions will be answered on
Corporate Governance Platform, a program designed to inform and educate our numerous viewers on the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities.
Join the Corporate Governance Platform Coup every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on MITV, your talent station, via DSTV 255 and UHF 43.
Corporate Governance Platform, your strategy for the adoption of corporate governance best practices by corporate entities. Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.